Supergirl is out in theaters, latest film in the new DC universe, directed by Craig Gillespie, who he's got a rather fascinating filmography, including Lars and the Real Girl, I, Tonya, and Cruella. This was based on the excellent comic book titled Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, which came out a few years ago, and I thoroughly recommend checking it out. It's got great story and even more stunning art. The movie stars Millie Alcock, David Corenswet, Eve Ridley, Matthias Schoenaerts, I'm not sure how to pronounce the name, and Jason Momoa. So Supergirl is Kara Zor-El, cousin of Superman. She was briefly introduced in the Superman movie last year. She's younger, edgier, more cool, and less dorky. To celebrate her 23rd birthday, she goes drinking on a distant planet under a red sun, which dims her powers and allows her to get drunk in the first place. While there, she comes across a young girl named Ruthie, whose family was brutally killed by Krem of the Yellow Hills, a ruthless brigand. Initially, Kara refuses to help. She does not want to get involved, but when Krem poisons her dog Crypto, she has no choice but to pursue the villain and recover the antidote in 3 days. So I gotta say this was a huge disappointment coming from the comic book. I didn't like it as an adaptation at all, and I think as a movie it's just aggressively mediocre, doing nothing interesting or new or you know fresh, and instead botching everything that was interesting about the source book. So going one by one, the visuals. Comic was stunning. This looks awful. Lots of grays and browns, very uninspired shots, choppy action, just dull cinematography. The story. I think having the comic book span literally months of time was a much better choice than just the 3 days in the film, as it gave us so many opportunities for both main characters to grow together and develop their relationship and also sort of come to grips with the enemy they were ultimately facing. I also think the comic was really clever about solving the problem of having an invincible protagonist and a villain who's just a dude by having them not meet for a very long time and making the story entirely about the journey, not the destination. And so much about the story was about following in the footsteps of Krem and always being slightly too late, always seeing the suffering and destruction that he brought, but being ultimately unable to stop it. And comic Krem also relied on his wits and intelligence and sort of being shrewd much more in delaying or stopping Kara from catching up with him. Whereas in the movie, he's suddenly just this superpowered dude, and the compressed timeline makes it all feel too quick. And also having him having powers leads to some of the sequences, the fight sequences, being just weightless and impactless. I mean, I've said this before on some superhero movie review. If it's two characters punching each other through walls and nothing happens to them, I immediately stop caring. I mean, if they can't get hurt, then what is even the point? Also, the movie is weirdly sanitized. Even in the few scenes of killing or injury, there is literally no blood in it at all, which is a really weird choice. And finally, the characters. I think the comic did a great job of exploring how Kara uses the mask of indifference and cockiness to hide her deep depression. In the film, she feels much more shallow. Also, I think having her listen to Earth music all the time was such a strange choice. It reeks of trying to copy Star-Lord from Guardians of the Galaxy, but that character had a reason to listen to all this music. It tied him back to his home, to his mother. Whereas for Kara, there is no emotional connection or anchor. It's just kind of there, which leads to many needle drops and sadly none of them working. Strangest of all for me was the choice to have a literal alien band on the other side of the universe play American songs. Like, what? Why? How? Um, Also, the specific song choices are abysmal. The music in this film is at best generic, at worst actively ruining the mood, which is again doubly strange if you consider that the trailers had pretty amazing music. I mean, "Call Me" was fitting the vibe of the character and the story, and it's just nowhere to be found in the actual film. I thought Jason Momoa was very underutilized as Lobo. He's in the film to do exactly what you expect him to do, just yell and smash bad guys for a few minutes, and that's just it. I did think Millie Alcock did an okay job, but she wasn't really given good material to work with. And it's not that it's a terrible movie. I just think it's aggressively mediocre, bland and generic, not standing out from the sea of other superhero movies, which is such a shame for an adaptation of such an original and gorgeous book. Go read that instead, because the film is a disappointment.